All right. You love to see it. You love to see it. Square Enix stock down. I shorted Square Enix once I saw that Final Fantasy XVI was a generic Devil May Cry game with a Final Fantasy name tag. I didn't get the short at this peak. I shorted before the game release. This is when Final Fantasy XVI released. I shorted around here. My average short cost was $23. I assumed it was going to go sub 20. I was right. I was very nervous because it took a long time to finally get here. But they released earnings, and they are disappointed with the performance of Final Fantasy XVI. And you know what? I'm disappointed with Final Fantasy XVI as well, because Final Fantasy is a game that is a turn-based JRPG. The second game I've ever played was Final Fantasy I. The first was Phantasy Star on the Sega Master System. These turn-based JRPGs were the only thing I played. Well, not the only thing. Were majority of what I played. 90% of what I played through all of my childhood, through all of college, was turn-based JRPGs, and Final Fantasy was the king. Final Fantasy was the pinnacle. Square Enix was the pinnacle. When you thought about JRPGs, you thought about Square Enix. And they took that reputation and flushed it down the toilet because they assumed that the turn-based genre was dead because they abandoned the turn-based genre. Now, during the PlayStation 3 age, that's when turn-based JRPGs essentially died. There was a couple, like Star Ocean 4, which had one of the worst dubs ever created. And then they had like Blue Dragon. None of these were good. None of the turn-based games on PlayStation 3 were any good, except for Lost Odyssey on Xbox 360. That game was stellar, but that was not Square Enix that made that game. So Square Enix gave up its number one trophy, its cash cow, the JRPG, for a generic hack and slash, and they deserve everything they get in the future. This company deserves to go bankrupt. The leadership at Square Enix is awful, and for some reason they think that JRPG is an insult, that turn-based gaming is gone. It's not gone. The fans of turn-based gameplay, they are still around. They just are not buying PlayStation consoles because it has nothing to offer us. During the PlayStation 3 era, I stopped buying consoles and moved to PC. And I play PC exclusively. And I think every other fan of JRPGs has pretty much moved to PC. And that's where we're at. Baldur's Gate 3 comes out, and there is a void of turn-based role-playing games. And that void was filled by Baldur's Gate 3. And that is a huge part of Baldur's Gate 3's success. Because you can only play so many games with your time, and there are no turn-based games. And there's been a huge turn-based void. The last turn-based game I played, I think, was, aside from, like, remakes, I think Persona 5 was probably the last one. And now we got Baldur's Gate just killing it because it respects its fan base. It's not going to try to turn Baldur's Gate 3 into some kind of fighting action game. No, that's not what Baldur's Gate 3 is. That's also not what Final Fantasy is. Final Fantasy is not Devil May Cry. They can try to turn it into that, but guess what? They're abandoning all of their fans, and they're going to have to try to build a new fan base that already has better games. The people that like Final Fantasy XVI also like God of War, but God of War is a superior product. So why would Square Enix go from being the number one producer of JRPGs to being not number one in generic hack and slash action games? I don't understand it. It's a terrible business decision, and their market share and their stock price is reflecting that. And I am happy as hell that I put my money where my mouth is, and I shorted this stupid-ass company, and I made some profits. Hopefully in the future, they'll go back to turn-based gaming, but I don't think they will. Baldur's Gate is the absolute antithesis to Final Fantasy XVI. Go Lariat, go turn-based gaming, and fuck you, Square Enix. Fuck you straight to hell. I'm so happy that your stock is down and I'm making money off of your failures. You piece of shit. Yeah, I'm a little mad. It sounds stupid, right? I'm a little mad. It sounds stupid. But you know what? How many JRPGs are there right now? How many people are releasing turn-based games for me to consume and enjoy? There's not that many. And when you take out the number one contender, the number one producer of JRPGs, you just remove them from the equation. Now, that reduces so many games that I could have been playing. I could have bought a PlayStation 5 and enjoyed a fantastic new addition to Final Fantasy XVI if it was a turn-based JRPG, but they've abandoned that. I'm looking forward to the new Dragon Quest, which will be turn-based. I'm looking forward to the new Persona game, which will be turn-based. And I wish I was looking forward to the new Final Fantasy, but I'm just not. But at least they had the balls. At least Square Enix had the balls to not pretend that it's a role-playing game. They kind of pretended, but for the most part, they have shed their past, which is a terrible decision. You spend 25 years building a legacy. Why the hell would you want to shed that legacy? But they have shed their legacy, and now they're going to be a generic hack and slash producer. They're going to create clone after clone. Final Fantasy XVII is going to be like Final Fantasy XVI. Dog shit, generic combat, bland story. I can't comment on the story. The story might have been excellent, but I'm not going to suffer through that combat to experience the story. If I want to experience Final Fantasy XVI Story 1, I'll watch Game of Thrones, Season 1 through 4. That'll cover it. Or I'll watch someone play it on Twitch, preferably with the big old set of titties. I just look at the titties and then look at the cutscenes and get the story. If I really want that, I'll do that. But I'm not going to do that. I don't want to support this trash. I want to short this stock. I did short this stock. I made money. Square Enix loses money. I'm a winner. Square Enix is a loser. At least that's what I want to tell myself. All right. That's all I wanted to talk about. Square Enix is trash. Fuck them. Fuck them straight to hell. Larian is excellent. Give them all the praise they deserve. Baldur's Gate 3 is fantastic. I've been playing the shit out of it. It's excellent. It's turn-based. They didn't abandon their fans. They respected the IP. Everything is excellent about Baldur's Gate. Everything is dog shit about Final Fantasy. That's the message of the day. And I wanted to gloat that I made a bunch of money on shorting Square Enix. And I hate Final Fantasy as a property now. It's unfortunate. Final Fantasy VII, one of the greatest games ever made. Final Fantasy VI, one of the greatest games ever made. Final Fantasy X, the decline of the series. It introduced everything that was wrong with the Final Fantasy series for 13 onward. Final Fantasy X, while I liked the game, that was the end of the series. Technically, you could argue the Final Fantasy IX was the end of the series, but Final Fantasy X is the end of the series. And if it wasn't for the excellent work of Final Fantasy XIV, I think Square Enix would be, really questioning their leadership decisions. But Final Fantasy XIV, which I hear is excellent, which is great, is keeping this company alive. They're keeping this company afloat. And, I hope to hell that when Final Fantasy XVI releases on PC, that it doesn't sell well. I'm pretty sure it will. They're probably going to end up coming out ahead in the long run with Final Fantasy XVI. But I am happy that they're disappointed with their 3 million units moved. Now, 3 million units, a lot of people would be happy with that, but Square Enix spent a lot of money on this game, and games like Final Fantasy VII or Final Fantasy X moved way more numbers than 3 million. I think Final Fantasy X, the whole property, was over 20 million sales, and Final Fantasy VII is at least 10 million across all of its re-releases. They don't have good numbers on it, but it's up there. The good games of Final Fantasy have done better than this, and that's great. That's great. Hopefully, they switch direction, or hopefully they go bankrupt. I'm fine with either. That's all. I just wanted to rant. Baldur's Gate 3, the more I play it, the more it puts me in my feels. It's bringing me back to where I want to be. It's such a good game. It's so well made. It's so up my alley. It is exactly made for people like me, and I feel that people like myself who've been playing JRPGs, who like this more strategic turn-based combat, slow pace, kind of chill. You throw a movie on, you play your chill turn-based role-playing game, and you just have a good time. I feel we have been neglected, and obviously there's a pent-up demand for that type of game because Baldur's Gate 3 is killing it. That's all. Ranting over. Fuck Square Enix again. I think I've said that like 10 times. That's all.